We've been hearing it all morning. Costs from cancellations are adding up as passengers affected by WestJet's flight disruptions are trying to make alternative travel plans. With Canada's air travel industry dominated by really just two players, WestJet and Air Canada, new questions about the viability of the sector have really taken off. The federal government is even hinting at further action. But what does that mean? And how can Canada's air travel be improved? Joining us with more on the fallout from the WestJet strike, which was averted, and the problems with Canada's airline industry is John Graddick. He's an aviation expert and professor at McGill University and a favorite of ours here at Your Morning. Thanks for coming back.
My pleasure, Anne-Marie.
Okay, we watched those disruptions that came this past weekend after the Competition Bureau said it would study the domestic air travel industry. What problems have come up with having just a two-player industry? I mean, I can think of some, but what do you see?
Oh, we all have our own little pet stories about what's been going on over the last 72 hours, and it's not a pretty sight. I think that, we've seen over 130,000 Canadians have their travel trips disrupted. People are stranded in Mexico, in the Caribbean, in Canada. There is no room available on other carriers in Canada to be able to backfill any of those trips that are being canceled by WestJet. And WestJet's regular schedule is already full. This is a peak travel period. This is not, November or October when we have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of empty seats. Every seat that we have flying in Canada traditionally in this time of year is full. So there's very little opportunity for passengers to really have an alternative operation. They have to sit out and wait out what WestJet can do for them.
I'm going to get to passenger solutions in just a moment, John, but first I wanted to ask you about what we mentioned in the intro. The federal government said more action is to come. What does that mean?
I'm not sure. That could be a whole bunch of things. And I think that, it really is, a question of, do you allow disruption like this to take place? In my opinion, the question is we only have two major carriers, as you mentioned in the intro. Canadians depend on air service, particularly this time of year. And the options for the government are few and far between, in my opinion. I think the one that's really in the mind of the politicians at this point in time is declaring air services as being an essential service and not allowing strikes to happen like it did on the weekend. Well,
here's something that I thought of as well. So we have this passenger Bill of Rights that is supposed to help passengers who get into predicaments like what we saw on the weekend. But man, we're hearing story after story of people either having to wait too long, the flights are really expensive, the airlines saying, look, strikes aren't under the policy, so we're not going to reimburse you for the flight. How about some accountability and some heft behind the passenger Bill of Rights? Could that help?
The airlines do not like the passenger Bill of Rights. They've been fighting this Bill of Rights for close to 5 years, ever since it was created back in 2019. So this is not something that the airline industry really looks at. I think that when we created this Bill of Rights, it was a lot of conversation among passenger rights groups, among the airlines. Airlines kind of won their point with the regulations when they said that we want to make sure safety is not compromised on these Bill of Rights, and I think that that's where the Bill of Rights really needs some beef in terms of trying to make sure that action is taken quickly by the carriers to protect passengers' trips, and that, as we saw this weekend, is not happening.
Well, we've still got a lot of summer ahead of us, so should people be cautious when we're booking flights this summer? Could we see more strike action?
I don't think you'll see any more, major strike action like this. I think everybody's on pins and needles after having watched what's going on. I think the next big one that we have on the horizon is probably the pilots at Air Canada. They're in the middle of conciliation at this point in time. This process started this week. They've got 60 days worth of conciliation. If that doesn't work, they have 21-day cooling off period. And then they have a strike vote, and that could happen sometime in the beginning of October. So that's the next big one on the radar screen. So I think between now and then, there's going to be some action taken by the government in making sure that we don't have a repeat of this debacle that we've had this past weekend.
John, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Anne-Marie, have a great day. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Hey,
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.